Hey guys, it's Fred. Welcome back to the Flying Wood Shop in Riva, Virginia. I'm just getting ready to send out the whiskey crate, and I thought I'd give you a little overview of the process and what went into it, and show you the finished product. I got contacted by the gentleman who is giving this as a retirement gift. It's a gift for a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force who served 26 years. So it was really cool to be part of that process and be part of his retirement ceremony. He gave me kind of a general idea what he was looking for, and then he and I worked out the details and came up with a design that he liked and that I was able to build for him. The first step, as with any project, is dimensioning the lumber. I dimensioned the sides, and I didn't even worry about the top and the bottom at first because I wanted to get the sides completely done and assembled before I started working on those. So what I ended up with was a 4-sided box as opposed to a 6-sided box before I put the bottom and the top on. After dimensioning the lumber, I went ahead and moved into the dovetails. So I cut all the dovetails by hand. As I've mentioned before in my videos, I don't have any fancy machinery here in the shop to work on things like that. So that's all cut by hand. I cut the inserts where the round carvings were going. Inside this end piece, there's actually a recess, and this is a 2 radii puck, basically. So this is super strong. It's basically a furniture joint, but it's a round mortise and tenon. So this not only is a decorative piece, but it also works as a handle. They're strong and they're never gonna come off. So I took the requirement to have the carvings, and I also made those the handles for the box. So it makes it easy to pick up and transport. Obviously I did that on both sides. Before I assembled the box, the dovetails were cut, but the box itself was not assembled. I went ahead and carved the Air Force symbol on one side, as you can see, and again, that's all by hand. I don't have machines to do that with. And then I carved the quote on the other. And the quote is, "From the last plane to the last bullet to the last minute to the last man we fight." And that was said by Joe Lightning Little. So once those were carved, I moved on to carving the pucks. I cut the pucks out and I started to work on the carving for them. Pretty straightforward, but it was pretty neat. I got to use this jig, this circle cutting jig, a new little addition to the shop. Basically, it's a base plate for my router, and there's a chart on the back. You stick a pin in the hole that corresponds to the radius that you want to cut out, and you can cut out anything from, it looks like 2 inches all the way up to 19, almost just under 19 inches. So, yeah, it looks like a pretty complicated thing, but it's actually pretty easy to use and worked really well for cutting nice circles and for getting a consistent result. Then I was able to go ahead and start working on the lid. Once the box was assembled, I had the exact dimensions. When I'm cutting the dovetails, I'm pretty good at it, but sometimes a 1/16 of an inch here, a 32nd there, makes it not exactly the dimensions that I was looking for. I actually came in pretty close. I think I came in around a 32nd, but I didn't want to do the lid until I had the exact dimensions of the final product. The only requirement for the lid was to have the nickname of the recipient carved into it. His name is obviously Duff. You may have seen this on previous videos as well. If he's a subscriber to my channel, which I highly doubt, then he already knows about this, but I think this is gonna be a surprise. To make the lid happen, basically I took one piece of curly maple, found a nice wide piece, I dimensioned it, and then I cut a rabbet around the edge where the lid will inset into the top of the box. I carved in a border. I carved in Duff using the same font that I used for the quote on the other side. A lot of people have asked me how I carve the letters and all those things. I'm not an artist. So to do these carvings, relatively complex things, such as this 99th Flying Training Squadron patch, what I do is I print it out in the size that I want it on just regular printer paper, and then I use carbon paper to transfer that to the wood, which works really well with the maple. It's a little more challenging with the walnut because of the dark color of the walnut, but it worked out okay. What I like to do after I carve it is come back and hit it with a torch. I torch the wood, and what that does is any corners really get highlighted, especially the edges. The things that have been carved down generally stay a lighter color, and things that are still where they originally were from the original dimensioning get a darker color, and it gives contrast to the carving. Making the base was relatively straightforward. The base is 4 pieces of curly maple, just glued and tacked to the bottom. And if you saw the assembly video for the base, you'll notice there are very slight gaps in between each board that allows for expansion of the wood. And I use a pretty fancy method for making those gaps. I have these super expensive spacers. Came off of a box of water. I just cut some scraps of cardboard, the thin kind, and that works really well. It makes it nice and consistent. So once the base was complete, it was time to start working on the whiskey support system, as I like to call it. And I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like now. Obviously there are going to be 4 glasses here. I only got sent 1 of them for size. So this was the agreed upon concept for how the glasses and the bottle would be supported, but I added this area here. This is what I call the secret compartment. It's really not so secret. It's obviously a big block of wood in the corner of the box, but it does contain a little surprise that was not agreed upon by me and the buyer. So this will be a surprise to him as well. This is held together with a couple of neodymium magnets. They're epoxied in there. And it opens up to reveal the whiskey log. So this is Duff's personalized whiskey log. The book itself is just a leather journal, and I used some punches to personalize it. Pretty straightforward, making the glass support. Piece of curly maple, cut 4 holes in it. I routed out the edges so they'd be nice and smooth, and then I supported it with 4 pedestals that are underneath. Very similar concept to what I did for the neck support on the bottle. I carved this by hand, and I left this rough because I like the way it looked. And this piece of wood, it's curly maple, but it's got old growth and sapwood in the same piece, and I just think it's really interesting. And then I put the spacers here, which are also what hold it in place. Those are glued to this, and it's all glued down, and then it's tacked through the bottom, just like everything else is. And there's a block over here, and I think I showed cutting a shorter block in one of my videos, but I thought a larger block would be more aesthetically pleasing, but also it's not going to pop off of there someday. Once the box was finished and completely assembled, I put 1 last coat of Danish oil on it, even though I had already pre-oiled most of the surfaces. And then after that had completely cured, I added a coat of paste wax. And the paste wax gives it a nice shiny sheen. It's not glossy, but more of like a satin sheen, and it also makes it really smooth to the touch. That's it. This thing's ready to be boxed up and shipped to San Antonio. I hope you guys enjoyed watching the process as much as I enjoyed making the project. This crate really challenged me in a lot of ways, but it's fun to do these custom projects that are unique and let me use different techniques that I haven't used before to expand my abilities, as well as make something that the person who's receiving it will hopefully cherish for a long time. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.